it's important to recognize a few things. Everyone invests differently, and everyone finds deals differently. Funny enough, Stephen came up and said they won't want to sell to you if they're in default and or in trouble, the banks. And every single deal I've ever done, and every single deal I've ever wholesaled, and every single note I have ever found has been from a troubled bank. So now I have another thing that I've done is I've followed the trail of banks that have bought other banks. And because a lot of times what happens is the notes that exist are in a different footprint than where they're willing to invest. So now they have a whole bunch of notes from an old bank that they bought of deals that they don't want to have because it's in a completely different footprint of where they invest. So that's a great strategy, So you can really, wherever you're looking, and now I'm thinking even healthy banks as well as banks in trouble. But one of the reasons why I've done well with banks that are in trouble, I believe, is because I come in as a new sponsor, or I bring in a new sponsor and they slide the loan over basically, or the REO. Remember, a lot of times there are REOs at that point. So, but it's great to have Steve here, and thank goodness to have a great eye on things. But remember, we have different strategies, and that's what's really great is to be able to draw from other people's strategies and what they're doing and what they're seeing in the market, and how they're sort of skinning a cat, And again, that's the beauty of doing deals. They're so creative. There's so many things that you can do with those deals, and knowing your exit strategies, knowing your entrance, everything is obviously one of the most important things. So let's hit value plays. We've been talking about this for a while. Remember, we kind of went with, now this is more of an REO strategy, or an OREO strategy, which I always see. It's funny because that's what bankers say, and when you're buying them, when you're more of an investor, we always say REO, But if you look up at the FDIC list, it says, in calculations, it's always OREO. So kind of different, and that's the banker's lingo is very different too from buying property traditionally, buying through brokers, everything. So value plays. All right, so we got it. This is what we do. We go in there and we find a property that has issues that we can fix and make more money by either increasing income or decreasing expenses. So you have for every dollar, the property's worth $10. So every dollar you increase to that NOI, net operating income, property's worth $10 more. So you can really play with that. And you can really play with forced appreciation. So value plays, this is how we've done very well in this market and in buying our properties, is we've come in, we fixed basically something about the income or something about the expenses, and made money that way. So value plays have huge, what page are we on? 47. Okay, great. Value plays have huge wealth creating possibilities, although they have the most risk. The most important thing is creating a higher NOI. Remember, that's the net operating income. Then creates a higher property worth. And create a plan for how that property is performing now and how you will increase the property value later. That's why I like to look at what are the numbers now on this side, what are the actuals, and where can I create a higher, what can I do? Can I bring up the income or decrease the expenses? I'm a big fan of decreasing expenses because I mostly work with bank-owned property, and banks have a tendency to run extremely high on expenses, extremely high. And that's something I can come in day one and knock down. So this is in your book. It's pretty wordy up here, but here you go. Cut the high expenses. What are the most common high expenses to look for, and the ones that we can really work with the most is really personnel and payroll. That's one of my favorite things to do. That doesn't mean I come in and get rid of a whole bunch of jobs or anything, but many times there's a lot of fat on the payroll side. There's a lot more people. I have that one property. You know, I want to share this property with you real quick. Now let me continue on with these value plays first. But when you have personnel and payroll, you can really go in there. One of my properties that I bought directly from the bank, they had about 14 people working on the property. And when I went there were 2 people on the property. And I said, well, where's the rest of the people? Well, the property management company has properties all over town, and they were farming out the the personnel onto the other properties. Yeah, and billing that property. The bank's not watching these things. You know, another thing that they were doing, I was standing there and we're doing an inspection of the property. And we looked at, okay, so this is how much they're paying for trash. We're standing on the property. Hello? Okay, the trash company comes, empties out the trash, right, the big bins, and we're there. About 3 hours later, the town came and emptied out the empty bins. So they were paying a trash company to come and take out the trash, and that was expensive. You're talking about almost 300 units, and they're dumping the trash. So they were paying for trash pickup, and the city was doing it because of taxes. So the property management company probably even was aware of this, but was probably getting kickbacks and all sorts of things. So there's all sorts of things that happen there. So another thing, capital improvements. Funny, when we were talking about scrubbing the books, how all owners scrub the books and many banks don't. A lot of times you will find that the capital improvements are still stuck in the operating expenses of the property. And of course that gets moved to the bottom line. And then you can easily move those things to the bottom line. And you can use that back at them. Well, you've got operating expenses here of this, thus your NOI is this. Don't correct them. Is the bank contracting everything out? Oh, that's another thing. They usually contract everything out. What we will do is we will typically get a on-site guy. If we have to do a lot of turnover, we'll get an on-site guy who will do all the make-readies. High water bill, utility bills. Be careful about these. I have done pretty well with these, bringing them down. However, if the utilities are at a certain amount, they're probably going to stay there. We had, one property that was right next to our other property that had 1/10 the water bill per cap. So it's literally the water bill per person was 10 times what this one was. And it just turned out that there were water leaks everywhere, and we could locate them very easily, and we fixed them. And it actually gave it was almost $40,000 a month in expenses that were going out the door. So but that's honestly, utilities, be careful with them, especially if it's a less occupied building and the utilities are high. That means no one's really using the you don't have as many people on the property using the utilities. Again, we've said it over and over and over again. You make money when you buy, period. Now let me show you how this works. One of the biggest value added investors is probably Warren Buffett, right? So double the value of real estate without relying on market appreciation. Double the value, you've got the business. Again, we value that business by income and expenses, right? Buy it at a price, fix the problem, and increase the value. And, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for devalued businesses that we can add value for with quickly. Loans too.